Okay, it looks like we've about leveled off and people trying to enter the meeting. So I'm just going to get started. So good evening, everyone. My name is Abby Pozos, and I work for the Philadelphia Department of Planning and Development. And welcome to the community information session regarding MV Realty. So before we get started tonight, I just wanted to go over some housekeeping rules real fast. The meeting is being recorded. If you have any questions, you may enter them in the Q&A box, and we'll address them at the end of the session. If you would prefer to speak your question, you can click on the raise hand button and we will unmute you at the appropriate time. If you are joining by phone and would like to raise your hand, you can press *9. And once we give you the ability to unmute, you can press *6. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie Smith from Community Legal Services.
Great, thanks, Abby. If everyone can just give me a moment, I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation. Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Smith, and I'm an attorney with Community Legal Services of Philadelphia. CLS provides free civil legal services to low-income Philadelphians on a range of matters. I'm an attorney in our homeownership and consumer rights unit, so we dedicate a lot of resources to saving and protecting homeowners and low-income individuals, saving homes in Philadelphia and providing information to low-income consumers in Philadelphia. And earlier this year, last year, we found several homeowners seeking legal help from CLS about a troubling practice by MV Realty. And I'm going to provide some background information on that now. As I said, people started coming to CLS seeking legal help because they had received a letter very similar to what you see on the screen from the Philadelphia Recorder of Deeds, informing them that a document had been recorded regarding their home. People received that notice and they were concerned that they had become a victim of deed theft. They thought someone was perhaps trying to steal their home. So they came to CLS seeking legal help. We investigated and discovered a different kind of scam. MV Realty is a real estate company that is offering what I would call a predatory home equity stripping product, tricking homeowners into giving up hundreds of thousands of dollars on their most valuable asset, their home. Basically, the way it works is they promise homeowners a few $100s in quick and easy cash, but then lock them into a mortgage through which they're going to pay thousands of dollars for any transfer of their property over the next 40 years. We're going to go into the details of how this program works and some of the risks it poses homeowners. But I just did, before we get into that, want to just do a little bit of a disclaimer. So while I am a lawyer and I represent many homeowners who are victims of MV Realty's schemes, the information we're providing today is really just a public service. This information is not specific. We're not giving legal advice and we're not acting as your lawyer by providing this information today. But we are going to provide some resources at the end of the session. If you do need legal advice, you can, and you qualify for free legal help from Community Legal Services. We may be able to represent you. There are also lawyers available through the Bar Association's lawyer referral service and other sources of help. So how does the MV Realty scheme work? As I indicated, the company promises homeowners who are in financially distressed, people who might be seeking out homes or cash to do repairs on, loans or cash to do repairs on their home. They may have other financial troubles that they're struggling with, and the company promises to provide them quick cash, typically money in a couple days, and they tell them that the only thing that they are obligated to is to use MV Realty as their real estate agent should they choose to sell their home in the future. And the emphasis in the sales pitch is that people have no obligation to sell their home. This is a screenshot from their website that I took back in August. Again, just the emphasis here is we're going to give you an immediate cash payment and we'll be your realtor if you want to sell. They then send a notary to homeowners' homes with a stack of documents for them to sign. It's sort of quick. It's often the same day that this pitch is made. It might be the next day. In those set of documents that people sign is a very actually complex contract and a mortgage. So I'm going to go into a little bit of details of what that is. The contract that MV Realty has people sign is called the Homeowner Benefit Agreement. And under it, MV Realty gets a 40-year right to sell the property. That is significantly beyond the maximum 1-year term we have for exclusive listing agreements in Pennsylvania. It binds not only the homeowner, but also their heirs. If MV Realty acts as a real estate agent under this contract for the homeowner, they'll receive typically 6% of the sales price of the home. If they're working with another broker, it might be 3%. But MV Realty really makes sure that they're protected. They guarantee themselves that they'll get 3% of whatever they estimate to be the value of the home at the time the homeowner signs the agreement. And in many of the contracts that we've seen, MV Realty has significantly overestimated the value of the home. So people are locked into paying them that fee, even if they've overestimated the value of the home. But the contract is much more than that. It's much more than simply a fee arrangement if the homeowner uses MV Realty as the real estate agent. It also locks a homeowner into paying what they call an early termination fee, which is 3% of the home value. And that home value under the contract is determined by MV Realty itself. A homeowner will be locked into paying 3% of the home value if the homeowner lists the property for sale on their own, puts it up with another agent, if they lose their property due to a foreclosure. And it also includes a requirement to pay that fee if they transfer the property to someone else, even if MV Realty had absolutely nothing to do with the transfer. And that can include passing the property through death. If the homeowner dies and an heir does not sign a contract with MV Realty within 10 days of the homeowner's death, or in some contracts, as soon as circumstances warrant, a 3% fee will be triggered. In its marketing materials, MV Realty claims that it does not file a lien on the house. This is a screenshot of their website today. Do you file a lien on my house? No, we file a memorandum. But in Pennsylvania, that's not at all true. In Pennsylvania, the documents that they require homeowners to sign is a mortgage. It's a mortgage that they record against the property. And having a mortgage recorded against the property really makes it harder for homeowners to access credit. It's also very problematic because I would say probably of all the homeowners that I've spoken to have fallen victim to the MV Realty scheme. And at this point, I'm talking about probably about 24 homeowners. Absolutely none of them understood when they were signing the homeowner benefit agreement that they were also signing a mortgage securing the deal. The homeowner benefit agreement also requires that homeowners not participate in class actions, that they don't sue MV Realty in court. Yet MV Realty reserves the right to use our courts to enforce the mortgage. If a homeowner elects to use MV Realty as their realtor and MV Realty cannot sell their home, there is an opportunity for homeowners to try to sell the home on their own, but it's very limited in scope. They wouldn't have to pay MV Realty a fee if MV Realty had a full 6 months to try to sell the home and then the homeowner puts the home up on their own or with another broker, gets a buyer within 60 days of the same listing price, and they close within 60 days. So it's a very, very limited opportunity to get out of the contract. Most contracts now from MV Realty do include a right to cancel within 3 days, requiring the homeowner to return the funds. Unfortunately, many homeowners aren't even aware of this because homeowners have reported to Community Legal Services that when the notary comes to their home to sign the documents, often the notary only has one set of documents for the homeowner to sign. The homeowner signs them, the notary takes them and leaves. And it can take days, weeks, even months. Some homeowners reported they never actually got a copy of the documents they signed, so they didn't have information about their right to cancel. So that's a contractual right to cancel that MV Realty has in most of their contracts now. But in addition, under Pennsylvania law, if a consumer or a homeowner signs a contract in their home, and the contract is for products or services that cost $25 or more, they also, under Pennsylvania law, have a right to cancel the contract. And they have 3 days. Those 3 days don't actually begin to start until the person or company that they're contracting with gives them a special form called a notice of cancellation form in duplicate that informs them about this law. So I believe that that law applies to the contracts that MV Realty is marketing in Philadelphia, where they're calling homeowners or actually showing up in their home and signing a contract. MV Realty disagrees, and ultimately a court will have to decide that issue. Those are some of the provisions and troubling practices we're seeing with MV Realty. Through the rest of the information session, we're going to talk a little bit about, number one, the disproportionate impact this troubling scheme has on homeowners of color in Philadelphia, and then resources that people have if they feel like they've fallen victim to this scheme. I also just wanted to, and we'll be able to answer questions that people have as well, but I did want to leave my information up here in case anyone wants to contact me directly about MV Realty. So our next presenter is Ira Goldstein from the Reinvestment Fund, and I will turn over the screen. Ira?
Thank you, Carrie, and good evening, everybody. My name is Ira Goldstein, and I'm with an organization called Reinvestment Fund. We are a local non-for-profit community development financial institution. And important to know that while we lend money to create affordable housing, we do not lend money to individual homeowners for individual mortgages or things like that. But we do invest money to create affordable housing, arts and culture spaces, childcare centers, all the things that people in communities need to have a vital, healthy, and equitable shot at a good life. When we saw this MV Realty phenomenon and got the privilege of having conversation with the folks in the city of Philadelphia and with Carrie and her colleagues at Legal Services, what we realized is that this is the kind of practice that really frustrates the mission that we have at Reinvestment Fund in terms of trying to build up wealth by stripping that wealth in the very ways that Carrie described to you. And as we thought about it more, and we gave got a hold of some of the data about where MV is working, what we kind of realized is that it is sort of the continuation of a very long pattern where you identify a population or a neighborhood where there are a large number of people who meet, let's say, a set of characteristics. Firstly, there are people who have needs for small amounts of money and who may not actually understand or know or actually have access to other places where they can get that money. So there's an element of real pressured need to be able to get that $400, $500, $600 that Carrie described. There are also people that have an asset. And in Philadelphia, although there is a racial disparity in home ownership, we have long had a very large population of Black people who own their homes. And that means that there is the kind of asset that MV could go after. They also, entities like this, practices like this, tend to try and prey on people who may not be totally experienced in the ways of real estate transactions. In other words, somebody may own a home, but they may not know all the ins and outs of mortgage financing. And so in some ways, what this represented to us was a new wave of a set of old practices. And as Malcolm X said, racism is like a Cadillac. They come out with a new model every year. And this really is the continuation of that model. So let's talk about what some of the early models look like. This is a map of Philadelphia in the 1930s. It is the original classic redlining map. In other words, when the federal government looked at neighborhoods across the country and identified certain characteristics of those neighborhoods, be they the racial mixing or the religious population or a variety of other things, they identified those as risky. The areas in Philadelphia here that you see shown in red, those were the redlined areas of Philadelphia. And that meant that the federal government deemed those areas to be risky, and therefore financial institutions, banks, would look very differently about how it was that they made loans in neighborhoods that had those red colorations. And frankly, they would look very careful at the third grade neighborhoods, those gold areas, and really look most favorably upon the green and blue neighborhoods. And that really was the way the federal government identified risk in our cities around the country. Now, it's an abhorrent practice. In the 1930s, there was no law that outlawed that, but it did exist. And all kinds of studies exist to show that this practice has decades and decades and decades of impacts on neighborhoods and people from those 1930s all the way to today. You will notice on that map that for those of you familiar with Philadelphia, the sort of east and west Oak Lane section, if you look at Broad Street and go all the way to the top of the city, and you'll see some blue and green, those were neighborhoods that were actually rated pretty favorably in the 1930s. However, those are also neighborhoods that if you follow this series of maps of Philadelphia showing the percentage of the population that's not white from 1940 to 1980, you will notice the area inside that little blue box there. Those were areas that were actually rated very highly in the 1930s, but through a series of, anti-fair housing efforts, something called blockbusting, those areas transition very quickly from white to black areas. And you'll see it really in that 1970 to 1980 period is where those areas changed quite rapidly. But it's also the case that it's not historic practices. It's not, just things that occurred 30, 50, 80 years ago. It's things that continue and sort of cycle through again. Philadelphia had a run on bad reverse mortgages, those mortgages that everybody thought were perfectly safe and all they, because Tom Selleck or Henry Winkler or somebody told him it was great, we pay you to stay in your house. This is a map showing the percent black of the city of Philadelphia in the areas that are in the darker shades of brown. Those are areas that have high concentrations of black people. The areas that have the purple hatching on that is the areas that are largely Hispanic. And each one of these green dots here, that's a reverse mortgage that went to foreclosure. That is a reverse mortgage for somebody who was told, don't worry about it, it's not risky, we pay you to stay in your home. Yet, you will see all those dots around, and you will see that they are predominantly located in the city's Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. If you look at mortgage activity as recently as 2021, the freshest mortgage data that exists in this for the country, frankly, this now again is a map of the city of Philadelphia. This time, though, the map is shaded by the denial rate. So when people apply for mortgages, do they get them or not? The darker areas are places where people are denied 25, 30, 35% or more. Inside the blue areas, those are the neighborhoods in Philadelphia that are predominantly Black. And again, the areas that have the purple hatching, those are the neighborhoods that have large Hispanic populations. You will notice that in the Black neighborhoods and in the Hispanic neighborhoods of Philadelphia, invariably compared to places that you see outside of those blue outlined areas or the purple hatched areas, the colors, the underlying colors are lighter, suggesting that the denial rates for mortgage credit are lower. And so we saw redlining, we saw blockbusting, we saw bad reverse mortgages, and we see now high levels of denial. And now what we see is MV's agreements. Now what we've done is to shade this map as we did before by the percent Black. The areas that have the darkest shading of brown, those are areas that are upwards of 80% Black. Each one of those little green dots is an MV Realty mortgage. And you'll notice, almost without exception, almost without exception, those dots fall in Philadelphia's Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because the nature of the pitch, the nature of the way that that firm finds their market is finding their way into Philadelphia's Black and Hispanic population, disproportionate to Philadelphia's white population. So that's what it looks like across the city in the map. If we just look at the characteristics of the people, this chart shows two figures. The gray bars represent the percentage of the city's homeowners that are of different racial and ethnic groupings. The gray bars, you'll see that the tallest bar here is, well, it's not the tallest bar, but the bar over the where it says Black on the horizontal, that's the percentage of homeowners that are Black, and that's 37%. The orange bars represent the percentage of people who are MV Realty homeowner benefit agreement people. That's 69%. So almost double the rate that you would see. And this is not space, this is actual people. And, we also took a look in the, the neighboring county inside this region, and that's Delaware County, just to the west of the city of Philadelphia. And all the distribution, although the distribution of Delaware County is different, you'll see that disproportionality of MV Realty beneficiaries being people of color. You'll see that there as well. And we even were able to, through the, the great efforts of the city's recorder of deeds, get data for a number of other counties around the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And you'll see in each and every instance, the MV Realty customers are more Black or more Hispanic than the distribution of homeowners would have you suspect. It's not limited. Kerry and her team have done a sort of an extraordinary job here in Philadelphia, and the AG folks have done an extraordinary job in terms of bringing to light this and trying to sort of introduce some lawful activity into what seems like a problematic set of practices. But it's not just here. This is the Atlanta metro area. Their map is shaded sort of inversely to ours. So the areas that have no shading in them, those are places that are over 75% Black. That's where the overwhelming predominance of MV Realty mortgages are. And I took a moment just to show you some of the places where mortgages have been satisfied. These are not necessarily, as you can see, the most expensive properties in the city of Philadelphia. This one is in far west Philadelphia on 62nd Street. Interestingly, it sold for $106,000, and MV Realty was the seller. Here's another one that was sold on Granite Street, which is in sort of eastern North Philadelphia, and that property sold for about $105,000, but MV Realty was not the seller of that property. Here's one on 66th and Musgrave, which is, again, sort of on the western portion of the city. And you will see $151,000. The most prominent picture is the address that's involved. And that's not even on the market, but it showed as satisfied. We have no idea how that happened. And then lastly, 61st and Sansom, and that's again way out in West Philadelphia. The property featured here is the one that went up first, that one that was involved in the MV transaction. And you will notice here, you will notice that it has not sold, but for some reason the MV mortgage has been satisfied. So I'd like to stop now and happy to take any questions along the way. Here are a set of links, and here is a way to reach me and my two colleagues at Reinvestment Fund who work on it. The last thing I want to say is I just think it's really important to emphasize again that the set of practices that Kerry has described to you, they are damaging. They are essentially they are stripping away wealth and equity that people have worked long and hard to get, and they're taking it for no particular good reason. Additionally, it seems it's not only like that's what they're trying to do, but they're trying to do it disproportionately in the city's communities of color, which makes it doubly abhorrent as a set of problematic practices. So with that, what I'd like to do is stop. I'm happy to take questions later on and pass it to our friends from the Attorney General's office. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Waring. I'm a Senior Deputy Attorney General with the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General, and I'm happy to be speaking with you all this evening. I am in the Philadelphia office with the Bureau of Consumer Protection. And before I get started talking about our office's efforts with regard to MV Realty, I want to give everybody on the call a little background about what we do, because it's not always clear. So the Office of Attorney General has many functions. We are a statewide agency and handling both criminal and civil matters under the leadership of our acting Attorney General, Michelle Henry. We at the Bureau of Consumer Protection handle civil matters, and it's far beyond just what you're going to hear today about MV Realty. I do want to encourage the homeowners on this call to reach out to us for any sort of consumer dispute that you may encounter. I'm going to give you our contact information. We handle everything from used car sales, home improvement contractors, any sort of business that you're doing a transaction with would fall within what we look at the Bureau of Consumer Protection. And we always encourage consumers to reach out with any concerns that they may have. We help mediate disputes with businesses. And in instances where we see violations of our consumer protection law happening, we move actions into an investigation or even a legal action like we took here against MV Realty. What we don't do is represent individual consumers. So we're a little bit different than how Carrie and her colleagues at Community Legal Services act as attorneys for individuals. We don't offer that here. What we do is we take action on behalf of the Commonwealth in situations where we see violations of the consumer protection laws happening, and that in those instances, we will seek recovery for all impacted consumers in Pennsylvania. So I want to talk a little bit more about what action this office has taken with regard to MV Realty. So on December 14th of last year, we filed a lawsuit in the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas against MV Realty. A copy of our complaint in that lawsuit is available on our website, which is www.attorneygeneral.gov, and I will put that in the chat when I'm done talking, so you'll have that information. And in that lawsuit, we made allegations that MV Realty has violated Pennsylvania's unfair trade practices and consumer protection law. And if you go through and read that complaint, you'll see the allegations that we have made, which mirror a lot of what Carrie Smith told you earlier about the nature of the contract and the way it's marketed to consumers. And we have made allegations in our complaint that the way MV Realty is doing business in Pennsylvania is unfair and deceptive to Pennsylvania's homeowners. Now, we are just at the early stages of the litigation. As I said, it was just filed last month. So what we're alleging now are just allegations, and we're going through the process. And for those of you familiar with civil litigation, it's not always a very quick process, but we're going through the process of gathering all of the facts necessary to prove those claims in a court of law. What's important to understand about our lawsuit is some of the relief that we're seeking for Pennsylvania consumers. First and foremost, we want a court to order MV Realty to cancel all of the contracts that they have entered into with Pennsylvania homeowners under this homeowner benefit agreement. And we want the mortgages that have been recorded in every county in Pennsylvania in conjunction with that agreement to be marked satisfied, that they are no longer on the homeowner's title. And that they're no longer causing some of the problems that you heard about today with refinancing or ability to transfer the property. We are also seeking a court to order that MV Realty cannot offer this type of contract to Pennsylvania homeowners in the future. We don't want to see anyone else hurt by this going forward. In addition, we're seeking restitution for any consumers who may have had to pay money out of pocket to MV Realty as a result of the terms of this contract that we maintain should be canceled. And finally, we're seeking that MV Realty pay civil penalties for its wrongful conduct in violating our consumer protection laws. We will continue to pursue that litigation. As I said, it's still in the very early stages. But I think what's important to folks who are on the call today is understanding, if you are an impacted consumer, if you have had done business with MV Realty, how you can become involved in the litigation that we're pursuing. So we are actively encouraging Pennsylvania homeowners who have entered into a homeowner benefit agreement with MV Realty to contact our office and to file a complaint with our office alleging the facts of the deal that you did. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. First, you can do it on our website, which I saw got put in the chat, attorneygeneral.gov. We have a link where you can go in to file a consumer complaint and just type in all of the information with regard to your contact details and give us a little bit of information about what happened in the situation that you had with MV Realty. And then that will get sent right to our office, and we'll make sure that it is assigned, to the consumer protection agent who handles this matter. You can also, if you don't want to do it online, you can email us. The email address is scans@attorneygeneral.gov. And you can also call us if you're more comfortable just providing the information on the phone. Then we can take your information and open up a complaint that way. And the phone number for our consumer protection hotline is 800-441-2555. So that's 800-441-2555. We have actual live people that answer the phone who are fantastic and will walk you through the whole process of filing a complaint. And so those are the ways to reach out to us. Now, when for homeowners who do wish to file a complaint, you'll see there's a form that we have online that'll ask you some questions, or if you call in, we'll go through the series of questions. It is also really helpful if you provide any supporting documentation that you may have. If you have a copy of a contract you signed with MV Realty, if you received any letters from them, if you sent any letters to them, these are all things you can attach to that complaint form that'll be really helpful. And what we do with all of these complaints for this matter that's in active litigation is part of our information gathering. So we want to find out how many Pennsylvania consumers have been impacted by this company so that we can include them on the list of people that we are seeking recovery for in this litigation. Now, I will be clear, the fact that our litigation is happening, as I said, we're taking this on behalf of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that does not preclude any homeowner from taking their own individual legal action. So if you want to contact Community Legal Services or you want to contact a private attorney to also explore other rights that you may have and other remedies you may be able to exercise against MV Realty, that in no way impacts whether you file a complaint with us or not. That's not preventing you from pursuing any other avenues, and we encourage consumers to pursue all of their rights. And if you have any other questions, please, I'm happy to answer them at the end of the proceeding. Thanks.
Thanks, Deborah.
My apologies. I'm turning it over to Will. I should have given you a better introduction.
No, that's okay. I was making a note of what you said. Good evening, everyone. My name is Will Hall. I'm the Director of Financial Inclusion in the City of Philadelphia's Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about some resources that are available to folks related to MV Realty. So to start off, I want to talk about resources that directly relate to MV Realty. And these are resources, some of which you've already heard about this evening. The first is Community Legal Services, which provides free legal services to individuals who are eligible for them. You'll see a website there. I will also, when I am done talking, drop all of the links that you see here into the chat, so that way you'll have them. If going to the link does not work for you, you can also call the number that you see there on the dates and times that you see listed, or walk in at the 2 addresses that you see of those times. If you are not eligible for free legal services from Community Legal Services, but would like to talk to an attorney about your specific situation and your specific MV Realty contract, and I saw a couple of questions in the Q&A about how do we get out of this, or what do we do? Is this just waiting for these processes to run their course? As Carrie said at the top, we can't give you that sort of legal advice as part of this community information session, but if you want to speak to an attorney and you were either not eligible or did not want to use Community Legal Services, the Philadelphia Bar Association has a lawyer referral service. You'll see the website link there, as well as a number that you can call to be referred to an attorney. In addition to both of those resources, as you heard from Ira, there are questions about how MV Realty went about identifying homeowners and signing folks up to these agreements. If you believe that you have been discriminated against in some way with regard to the contract that you entered, the Department of Housing and Urban Development has a complaint process. You can visit the website that you see there, fill out a form, and there are instructions about how to send that into HUD and then what happens next in the process. And finally, as Deborah just shared, you can submit a complaint to the Office of the Attorney General. She provided the telephone number. There's also the website here that you can visit in order to submit a complaint. Next, I want to talk about resources that are available to individuals that aren't specifically related to MV Realty, sort of tangentially related to MV Realty. And the first one's a bit of a transition resource. The Philadelphia Consumer Financial Protection Task Force is a task force that was established by the mayor back in May to identify consumer products and practices like this one that are a concern to Philadelphians. If you have something that you need to reach out to someone about and you're not quite sure where to go, none of the options I just talked about seemed appropriate to you, feel free to shoot an email to the email address that you see there, consumer.protection@phila.gov, and someone will get back to you with the appropriate referral for your given situation. Second, if you are somebody who is dealing, as Ira talked about, with a tight budget and are wondering what resources there are in order to either improve income or to reduce expenses, and you just feel like you need general financial help, the city operates financial empowerment centers that provide free one-on-one financial counseling to individuals. I note there that income limitations apply. That is an inappropriate notation. Actually, there are no income limitations to visiting a financial empowerment center, so please disregard that. Information on how to schedule an appointment at a financial empowerment center can be found at the link that you see there, or you can call the number that you see on the screen. Third, the City of Philadelphia also runs a basic systems repair program that provides emergency repairs to parts of your home on a eligibility basis. Certain types of repairs are covered. There are income limitations for this program. If you want more information on what sorts of repairs are covered or what those income limitations are, you can either visit that website or call the number you see on the screen at the times that are listed. In addition to that basic systems repair program, the city also sponsors a rent, repair, renew program, which provides a low-cost loan to individuals to make repairs to their home. The interest rate on that loan is well below market rate, and I believe folks can apply for amounts up to either $25,000 or $50,000. I know that amount has moved recently, and I'm not quite sure where it's at right now, but for more information on how much is available and what the process is to apply for that loan, please visit the website that you see there on the screen. You can also call a financial empowerment center and ask for help with a rent, repair, renew application. Fourth, the city sponsors an adaptive modification program. This is a program that provides renovations to a home needed to assist with disability. You can find out what sorts of renovations can be made through that program and what the eligibility requirement is for it at that link, or you can call the number. And finally, the city operates a heater hotline for folks who need assistance with their home heat. You can visit that link or call that number to get more information about eligibility for repairs and what sort of income eligibility limitations apply. Like I said, I'm going to drop all of these links into the chat, and I know it was a lot to throw at you sort of in rapid fire like that, but really I think the message here is that if you or a neighbor or a loved one has a need, whether it's a home repair need, whether it's a financial management need, whether it's legal advice, there are options available to you and we want to encourage you to take advantage of them. We thank you all very much for taking time out of your evenings to come hear about this very important issue. Like I said, I'm going to drop those links into the chat. I also want to recognize that we have had a couple of questions in the Q&A that I want to pass along to some of our presenters. First, somebody asked if this will be presented again or if it is being recorded. We do have 2 additional community information sessions. Those will not be available virtually. Instead, they will be live and in person at CLS's location at Broad and Erie, or at People's Emergency Center, now called Hopeful, in West Philadelphia. If you want more information on those sessions, you can visit the same registration link that you visited to sign up for this session. Both of those locations are space limited. Unlike virtual, we don't have an infinitely sized room for folks to fit into, so it is possible that we will run out of space in both of those locations. We'll assess the need and demand for additional sessions after these 3 are done, but this session will be available online. And so following this sessions, we will be posting this to the phila.gov website. It will be available on the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunities page. The next 3 questions that were asked were all sort of the same vein, and I'm going to answer it as best I can, and then allow any of the co-presenters to, to follow up. One person asked how we get out of this contract. Somebody else asked, is there a way to fix this or just wait for legal proceedings to work out? A third person asked, I just want out, I'm mad and that's not right, don't let them get away with this. All sort of in the same vein to me. It's part of the reason why we launched the resource portion of this with information for CLS, information for the legal referral service. The answer to whether or not you can get out of your agreement is inherently unique to you. While there's commonality across these agreements, none of us could fully give you appropriate advice on how to handle your situation without talking to an attorney. While there is information from the Attorney General on actions they are taking and what they are pursuing, again, nobody can answer specifically for each one of you. We do want you to be aware and to know what resources exist, but in order to get answers to your specific situation, it would be necessary for you to talk to an attorney. Again, either somebody from Community Legal Services, somebody from the Lawyer Referral Service, or another attorney in the state. Any of my other co-presenters want to come off mute and address that more fully?
Well, I'm happy to jump. I'm sorry, Carrie. Go ahead, Carrie.
I just wanted to say I feel that power in anger, because I've spoken with a number of homeowners who just really feel like they were deceived, and that they truly believed the pitch that they were just signing up to a contract where they were going to get some cash, and if they chose to sell, they would give MV Realty the opportunity to serve as their real estate agent, and then later learned that a mortgage was recorded on their home, that the contract was for 40 years, that the contract overestimated the value of the home, that included much more complex terms, and that were explained to them that they would have to pay a fee for any transfer of the property. That's infuriating. And people, I hear that anger, and you're not alone in feeling that. And I would encourage you to take action, if you feel like you were deceived about getting into this contract, to file a complaint with the Office of the Attorney General. If you are concerned, I think as we all are, about the significant disproportionate impact this has on Black and Brown homeowners in Philadelphia, to file a fair housing complaint, and then to get information about your own individual circumstance. All legal advice is going to be tailored to your specific contract and your specific needs. We spoke generally here today about the contract. I mean, you can pay an early termination fee under most contracts to not have to use MV Realty as your real estate agent. There may be opportunities to cancel the contract depending on when it was signed and how it was signed. There may be opportunities if the homeowner has used MV Realty as their listing agent and they haven't procured a buyer within 6 months. There may be ways for them to attempt to try to sell the house on their own. Again, those are very general sweeping statements, and really you probably want to get some tailored legal information and advice, and we'd encourage you to reach out to the resources that we've outlined here. But I want to let you all know that I hear you, and there is a lot to be concerned about here, and thank you for participating, and please take the action steps that we're suggesting.
Thanks, Carrie. Just to reemphasize that I completely agree with two points that Carrie made that are important. First of all, this office has also heard from a lot of very frustrated homeowners who've dealt with MV Realty, and we understand the level of frustration that's out there. And the second thing is, the best course of action is to get tailored legal advice to your individual situation. I will tell you, with regard to the action that the Attorney General's office is pursuing, if you are a Pennsylvania resident homeowner who signed a contract with MV Realty, then you are included in the scope of the relief that we're seeking with regard to cancellation of these contracts. Now, again, that is for a court to decide. We can put forth our best evidence. In the end, it'll be a judge making a decision. But so that's why we are encouraging anyone who has been impacted to reach out, because this is a statewide suit. So any Philadelphia homeowner who's done business with them would be included. Can be included on the list of individuals that we're seeking relief for.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Deborah. Deborah, you answered somebody's question about the scope of who is covered by the Attorney General's action. And I also want to address somebody here asked that question. This happened to them back in 2021 and wanted to know if this applies to you as well, since we all just started taking actions. So obviously Deborah's comment just now addresses that with regard to the Attorney General. With regard to other actions, whether it's actions by community legal services or by the city of Philadelphia, that are not broad sort of legal actions, or with regard to the city, not legal actions at all, but merely providing resources. The extent to which you would be covered would be the extent to which you were to take advantage of those. So if you talk to somebody from CLS, talk to a lawyer from Lawyer Referral Services, talk to a Financial Empowerment Center counselor, make a complaint to HUD, those would all be viable actions for you to take right now. What the outcome of them would be, it's specific to your situation. But the answer is yes, all of this information is pertinent to you, even if you signed your agreement back in 2021. I'll let any of the co-presenters weigh in on that as well before we'll move on to a couple of other questions we have in the chat. Okay. Somebody asked the question if we've ever heard of a company, National Asset Mortgage. They harmed many people contractually. Do we support people who were harmed in New Jersey? So I can't speak for everybody on this call. I do know that, the folks from the city of Philadelphia obviously work for the city of Philadelphia. Similarly, I believe CLS, their boundaries are covering folks who are in the city of Philadelphia, but I'll let Carrie correct me if I'm wrong on that. The Attorney General of Pennsylvania is obviously the Attorney General for Pennsylvania. If you live in New Jersey and believe you have a consumer complaint, I believe the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey has a similar consumer complaint process, and so you could reach out there.
That's right. I will add, if there's a situation where someone perhaps owns real estate in Pennsylvania but lives in New Jersey, that might be something we'd be. If the real estate is located in Pennsylvania, then you may fall within the scope of this lawsuit. But otherwise, I would encourage you to contact the New Jersey Attorney General's Office Consumer Protection, and they should be able to help you.
Thank you, Deborah, for that clarification. Somebody asked the question, if you send the report to the Better Business Bureau, are you going to work with them? And I'm not quite sure who the pronouns refer to here there with regard to who the them is. I can't speak to what happens when you file a report with the Better Business Bureau. I'm not aware of myself or anybody on this call doing anything with them as part of this process. So I'm not 100% sure how to address that question. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to that. Okay. Somebody asked, Carrie, if you could share your contact information. We put a link in the chat to Community Legal Services. Carrie is an attorney for Community Legal Services. So if you're interested in representation from them and want to know if you'd be eligible for their services, I'd encourage you to visit the link that we dropped into the chat window and follow the information there. Carrie, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, to apply for legal help from CLS, Will did include a link to our website. We have both walk-in and telephone intake. I'm also happy just to answer basic general questions that people have. I mean, if you're applying for legal help and you need legal advice, you should go through our intake service. But I'm happy to put my contact information in the chat as well.
One of our folks who works at the city also noted that we should be able to put contact info that's been shared today and links that have been shared today in a follow-up email to you all. So be on the lookout in your inboxes for that. Somebody asked the question, in this lawsuit, would we have to pay back the funds that have been given to us? I could take a halfway crack at that, but I think, Deborah, do you want to, just go first with that one?
That depends on the ultimate outcome before the court. Part of what we have asked the court for is that, that is not a remedy that's available, but it's all about the decision of the judge who has the case.
Thank you for that. And obviously, again, if you were to pursue representation individually, that is something that you could ask, an individual attorney who is representing you. Somebody put into the chat here that they've been trying to reach out to the Attorney General since August of 2022 with no follow through. I'm sure we're sorry to hear that. That said, I would encourage you to fill out the complaint form that was shared in the chat, or contact the email address that was shared, or the phone number that that Deborah had shared. Deborah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I don't see that user's contact info, but I'm happy to follow up on that and see what the status of that inquiry is. But if that user can share contact info or private message someone, I'm happy to follow up on it.
Thank you. Somebody asked if other states are filing cases against MV Realty, and if so, has there been any verdict in those cases? I have not been following the status of individual cases. That said, I am aware that the Attorney Generals of Florida and Massachusetts filed lawsuits, not exactly similar, but similar in nature to, because obviously Florida and Massachusetts have their own laws, but similar in nature to the suit that was filed by the Pennsylvania Attorney General. I don't know if anybody has anything else to add to that question.
No, you're correct, Will, that Florida and Massachusetts have also filed suit. There may be other states in the future, we don't know. We just sort of know what's going on with our own litigation. We did learn today that the Federal Communications Commission is pursuing an action against MV Realty as well for their telemarketing practices. So that's a little bit different than what we're alleging in this suit, but it's another legal action that's being taken on that end.
Thanks, Deborah. And the individual who asked the question about contacting the Attorney General provided their contact information, and so I put that in a private message over to you. Will we be notified of the outcome from the State Attorney General? Like Deborah said, the notice of the lawsuit being filed is on their website, and I would imagine between either public media or on their own website through press releases. When there is an outcome, you would expect to be told about that. Deborah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, no, that is right, but it's also another great reason for consumers to file a complaint, because then we have all of your contact information, we know you're impacted, and when we do provide updates to consumers, you'll get those updates.
Okay. So somebody asked if COVID made this worse. I don't know that we necessarily have an answer to that. I'm going to say I don't know, and pause for a second if anybody else wants to take a crack at that. Okay. The person who asked the question about Better Business Bureau clarified their question. Are you going to work with the Better Business Bureau to stop MV Realty? I know that's not part of anything that our office has in its plans. Again, I'll take a pause to see if anybody else wants to respond to that, but I think the actions that are being taken are the ones that were shared this evening. Somebody asked the question, they hate to see people losing their home, even if you told them you will give the money back, but they turned it down. What should we do? I'm gonna interpret this question as somebody who reached out and tried to get out of their deal simply by offering the money that they were given by MV Realty back to MV Realty. Since it was directed to Kara, I'll let you take a first crack at it if you'd like.
Sure. So everything, of course, depends on the individual circumstances. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but certainly seeking out legal advice if you tried to cancel the contract and they refused to honor that, and getting specific information, legal advice to that situation. But then generally, again, just reporting that to the Office of the Attorney General. They need to know about all the elements of the operation of MV Realty. So if you've tried to cancel the contract and they've refused, sharing that information with them, I think is a good first step.
Thanks, Carrie. Somebody asked if Deborah could give out the office information again. I see that Peter Fair, who's also from the Attorney General's office and supporting the session this evening, has just reposted both the web address for the form to submit a complaint, as well as the email, scams@attorneygeneral.gov, and the phone number 800-441-2555 into the chat. Somebody asked the question, can MV Realty foreclose on my home? Which is, an interesting legal hypothetical. I think, and I'm going to let other folks answer this as well, but, first and foremost, a lot of what MV Realty has done, obviously, the presenters on this call think that they could not do, but they did anyway, and consider that, activity unlawful. So to say what they will do next is probably not for us to guarantee one way or the other. That said, I don't, off the top of my head, given that there's not Yeah, I struggle to see how they would get around to a foreclosure, but there are more creative legal minds than mine. Anybody else on the call want to take a crack at the answer to that question?
I can say that generally, MV Realty, right, has people, homeowners sign a mortgage, basically putting up their home as a guarantee for any funds that are due to them under the homeowner benefit agreement. And they have filed lawsuits in Philadelphia against a few homeowners as a step to enforce the agreement. I can tell you, at least in one case, the homeowner had forgotten about the agreement that he had with MV Realty and put his home up for sale with another realtor, and then was an action was filed against him in Philadelphia court. It wasn't a foreclosure action, and the Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General's office has raised some of the ways in which MV Realty is using the courts to enforce its agreement as being part of the unfair and deceptive trade practices they're engaged in. But they actually have not filed foreclosure actions, but they have filed lawsuits to enforce their agreement. Not a lot, and it seems to have been, there haven't been ones filed in Philadelphia, at least in the last couple months, but they were filing them previously.
Thank you, Carrie. Somebody asked the question, will the information in the chat be available when the webinar is over so they can get all the context that we're putting there? So like I said, we will in a follow-up email put information to the websites and the contact information out to all registered attendees of tonight's session. Additionally, I'm going to put into the chat right now, if you don't remember any other contact information from tonight, jot down the email I just put in, which is consumer.protection@phila.gov. If you send an email to that saying, I was at the session the other night, I remember somebody talking about something and I don't remember all the details about it, somebody will get back to you with that information. So you will get a follow-up email. You can copy the stuff out of the chat now, but if you remember nothing else and have a follow-up question, consumer.protection@phila.gov. They can point you in the direction to file a complaint with the Attorney General, to access community legal services, lawyer referral, HUD, financial empowerment centers, whatever your question is. Those are all of the questions that I have in the chat. I'll do a quick thank you and goodbye, and if there's any other questions that show up, we'll address those you know, as a bit of an encore. But thank you all very much. Thank you to our presenters, to the Attorney General's office, Deborah and Peter, Community Legal Services, Carrie Smith, Reinvestment Fund, Ira Goldstein, Abby Process from Philadelphia Department of Planning, Solomon Leach from our office, the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity. And thank you to everyone who attended. We know that this can be rather scary information, especially if you're hearing it for the first time and have been affected by this or know someone who's been affected by this. And so we thank you for showing up to the session. We encourage you, if you are in that situation, to reach out to the resources that have been shared. If you know people who have signed similar agreements who could not make it to tonight's session, point them in the direction of the information that was provided. The recording will be available on the phila.gov website in the next couple of days, on the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunities website. Again, email consumer.protection@phila.gov if you want to be pointed in the right direction for that. And yeah, share with others who may not have been able to make tonight's call. Thank you everybody very much. Happy Tuesday evening, and be safe.